Labor leaders are furious over a police raid on the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions headquarters on Sunday. The administration is standing firm. Conflict in South Sudan has stoked fears for the well-being of Korean troops dispatched there for peacekeeping missions. And we mark 2 decades since guide dogs for the blind and visually impaired were first introduced to Korea. Hello and welcome to News Today on KBS World. It's Tuesday, December 24th. I'm Luke Clary. The nation's labor leaders have blasted the administration over the police siege of the Korean Federation of Trade Unions headquarters Sunday, going so far as to call for the resignation of this administration.
The labor sector has been strongly protesting the police's previous forced entry into the headquarters of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions since its founding. The Confederation has vowed an all-out strike for December 28th and even called out for the resignation of the current administration.
폭력적으로 난입해서 만행을 저지른 박근혜 정부는 노동자들과의 전쟁을 선언한 것으로.
The Federation of Korean Trade Unions has also joined in on the struggle. It has demanded an apology from the government and decided to not attend a tripartite meeting with their management and government counterparts. Some 200 civic groups said the latest incident showed the current administration's lack of communication and sense of self-justice and called for the government to stop the rounding up of rail service unionists and come to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, police stressed that the sweep of the KCTU headquarters was legitimately executed according to the law. The law enforcement authorities explained that the police was forced into action since they could not let the union leaders direct an illegal strike at a specified location so publicly.
불법 파업을 지휘하는 양상을 더 이상 묵과할 수 없다는 판단하에 체포영장을 집행하기 위한 부득이한 절차로
The police have promised a one-level promotion for the arrest of railroad union leaders and plan to apply obstruction of justice charges on 130 union members that have been taken into custody.
President Park Geun-hye responded to the ongoing rail union strike. Her position remains firm. She says the nation's future cannot be guaranteed if we make what she calls unprincipled compromises.
President Park Geun-hye said Monday that the Korean people are concerned about the threat of North Korea's provocation and the ongoing rail strike. She stressed that the nation as a whole needs to stick to principles when the going gets tough.
당장 어렵다는 이유로 원칙 없이 적당히 타협하고 넘어간다면 우리 경제, 사회의 미래를 기약할 수 없을 것입니다.
She said even though it's inconvenient and difficult now, if we overcome this period, it will help cement the foundation for economical and social development. Her words are believed to reflect her resolve to deal with the striking railroad workers strictly based on law and principles. She also said issues of labor relations, such as wages, shorter work hours, and extending the retirement age, should be addressed through a grand compromise between the parties of labor, management, and government. The president will hold a New Year's news conference and lay out her envisioned state governance for 2014. It will be her first news conference since inauguration, excluding those that were held during her overseas trips. She is expected to present in detail her policy directions for the new year in a bid to ease criticism that she is uncommunicative with the public.
The National Intelligence Service says that Pyongyang is likely to provoke South Korea yet again to solidify the regime's grip on power. The NIS warns of increased artillery movement on northwestern islands and preparations for a possible nuclear test.
National Intelligence Service Director Nam Jae-jun reported to Parliament that North Korea could carry out a fourth nuclear test at any time. He said that there might not be immediate signs at the moment, but believes that the regime would be able to do so at any time.
4차 핵실험이라든가 이런 부분에 대한 특이한 징후는 없으나 언제든지 할 수 있는 준비는 마친 것 같다.
The NIS says it doesn't know yet whether Choi Ryong-hye, director of the North Korean military's General Political Bureau, briefed Beijing on Pyongyang's nuclear test plans during his visit to China in May. The NIS projects it's very likely the North could provoke the South sometime during the first quarter of next year. This projection is backed by signs of increased artillery fire in the northwestern border islands, including multiple rocket launchers.
내부 불만을 외부로 돌리기 위한 것이고 서북 5도에 대한 포병 부대의 증강.
But the NIS says after the concentrated deployment of rocket launchers, there hasn't been any more particular movements. Speaking to Parliament earlier this month, Defense Minister Kim Kwan-jin also mentioned the possibility of a North Korean provocation early next year, since there's much room for misjudgment over factors such as the regime's competitive loyalty towards its leader, Kim Jong-un.
The conflict in South Sudan between rebels and government forces is causing concern about the safety of Korean troops dispatched there for peacekeeping missions.
Battles between the government forces and rebels have intensified in the Bor region in South Sudan, where Korea's Hanbit unit is stationed. Casualties from the recent conflict numbered around 1,500. As a result, the Korean military decided to supply more firearms and ammunition to safeguard Korea's peacekeeping force. Comprised of some 280 engineers and medics, the Hanbit unit is lacking in combat power. The Korean military is working on sending heavy weapons and ammunition on a military transport plane to South Sudan. In the meantime, the Hanbit unit has asked the UN for more ammunition and has received 15,000 rounds of ammunition from nearby American and Japanese units. But the Korean military would come under fire if Korea's peacekeeping unit, which was dispatched for reconstruction purposes, is forced to engage in combat. Therefore, the military leadership is mulling over various measures, including a pullout of Korean troops.
목표를 최대한 수행하는 것이 가장 중요하고 여건을 만드는 것도 중요하고 최악의 경우도 고민하는 것도 당연히 그 대안 속에 들어가야 할.
Meanwhile, Seoul has confirmed the safety of 24 Koreans staying in South Sudan and has asked them to leave the politically unstable country as soon as possible.
An integrated steel mill based solely on Korean technology and built overseas has begun operations. It's a first for the industry, now celebrating the 40th anniversary of Korea's first domestic iron production.
A huge blast furnace is unveiled 30 months after construction began. The fire is lit and the furnace begins to operate, producing molten iron. This is the first integrated steel mill that has opened in Indonesia, built using Korean technology.
Sekaligus dapat meningkatkan ekonomi kita serta memperluas lapangan pekerjaan.
The mill can produce 3 million tons of steel annually, and some $2.8 billion were invested to construct it. POSCO is the first in the world to open such an integrated steel mill overseas. It can manage the full process of making molten iron and removing any impurities to produce a finished product. This feat comes exactly 40 years after Korea produced its own melted iron using foreign assistance.
인도네시아 산업의 발전에도 기여를 하고 우리도 인도네시아 시장을 장악함으로써 동남아시아의 교두보를 확보한다라는 게 의의가 크다고 하겠습니다.
The Indonesian economy is growing at an average pace of over 6% each year. Its demand for steel is surging. With the new mill in Indonesia, POSCO envisions creating a steel belt connecting China, Vietnam, and even India to secure its market. Even in the midst of a global economic recession, Korean steel is striving to chart out new markets.
Cakes are in high demand during the holiday season, but some unscrupulous bakeries have been found selling cakes without proper markings for expiration date or product origin.
This bakery is located in the Seoul suburb of Ansan, Gyeonggi province. Its freezer is filled with assorted cakes. But the cakes are not marked with mandatory expiration dates, nor are they labeled with a list of ingredients and substances. The police discovered that none of this information was available on chocolate waffles at another bakery. These products are usually sold in bakeries and coffee shops. The shelf life for frozen cakes ranges from 3 months to 6 months at most. The police suspect that the cakes were made in advance to meet the spiking demands during the holidays and then had their expiration dates extended.
원래 제품 생산은 그 시점에 유통기한을 표시해야 되는데 그 물량을 맞추기 위해서 유통기한을 표시 안 하고 있다 주문이 들어오면 그때.
Furthermore, the bakeries falsified the origins of the fruits used in the cakes, listing them as being domestically grown and then used ingredients past their expiration dates. The police have seized 1.6 tons of cakes and ingredients for disposal.
Korean animated films have taken their place alongside Korean music, movies, and dramas in the rise in popularity of Korean content worldwide. Downtown Seoul is now host to an animation street.
The TV cartoon Run Honey was all the rage back in the 80s. Its characters were recently found in the Mount Nam area. Drawn on the walls of a Chinese restaurant, they remind customers of the good old days when they would get excited about visiting Chinese eateries.
이 거리하고 이 중국집하고 왠지 잘 어울리는 것 같아가지고 제 어렸을 때 모습을 이렇게 만화로 표현해 보았습니다.
Characters of the most popular Korean cartoons can be seen on a 450-meter street stretching from Myeongdong to Mount Nam. This cartoon street was created using contents provided by some 70 cartoonists. Exhibitions and performances featuring their works can be seen nearby.
사람들이 많이 다니는 명동 한복판에 어떤 이런 만화 문화 공간이 생김으로써 많은 외국인 관광객들도 찾아서 또 한국 만화를 알릴 수 있는 그런 계기가 될 것 같습니다.
Next year, stores selling cartoon-related products are to open in Korea. The Seoul city government plans to promote the cartoon street into a special tourist zone.
Guide dogs can open an entire world of independence for the blind and visually impaired. It's been 2 decades since guide dogs were first introduced to Korea. Here's more.
Choi Soo-yeon is visually impaired. She was able to achieve that thanks to her guide dog and reliable partner, Onu, which has been with her for over a year now. We installed a camera on her shoulder to see how her guide dog helps her. Onu skillfully finds doors and deftly avoids unfamiliar objects. The dog also stops in front of crosswalks when it's not safe to cross the street.
1호선 지하철을 타고 오는데 오뉴가 그 복잡한 사람들을 다 알아서 싹싹 피해줘요.
Guide dogs help visually impaired people avoid obstacles, warn them if there is any danger, and help them walk around outside. They also act as their companions. It takes 2 years of intensive training to become a certified guide dog. Only 3 out of 10 dogs pass the test. Yet, social bias and ignorance still have a strong impression. Over the past 2 decades, 164 guide dogs were provided to the blind. Many of those people graduated from colleges and are leading active social lives as teachers and pianists, all thanks to their reliable 4-legged partners.
고양이를 만나서 제 생활이 많이 활동적이길 원했고
Having good posture is not just good for your back, it can also help you slim down. So stop slouching, straighten up, and learn how you can make yourself healthier with this report.
Korea is said to have the longest working hours among the members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. But it is not easy to maintain good posture while working such long hours.
바른 자세로 앉는다고 하는데 오래 지속될수록 엉덩이가 빠지고 허리가 아픈 걸 알면서도 계속 그냥 편하다 생각되니까 그 상태로 계속 유지되는 것 같아요.
This homemaker in her 50s visited a hospital for her back pain.
요즘 아무것도 한 게 없는데 허리가 이상하게 많이 아프고 그래서 왔습니다.
It started out as a slight discomfort in her back, but now it has worsened to shooting pains in her legs.
환자분 MRI 검사를 통하여 이 좌측에서는 신경이 이렇게 잘 유지되고 있는 정상 마디에 비해서 우측에 비하면 신경이 이렇게 눌려있는 황색인대 비유에 인하여 신경이 눌려있는 척추관 협착증의 모습을 관찰할 수 있었습니다.
What could she have done to exacerbate her condition? Let's watch her for a day. She has her legs crossed as she watches TV. She's bent at almost 90 degrees while vacuuming, and her posture remains less than ideal even when she's taking a break. Years of poor posture have resulted in a long-term backache. She also tends to sit in the so-called executive's posture with her back against the chair and her abdomen stuck out. This sitting posture can lead to a bulging tummy.
등을 기대어 앉거나 의자에 너무 편하게 앉는 경우는 당장은 편하게 느끼실 수는 있지만 이러한 자세는 복부나 등 근육을 사용하지 않기 때문에 근육이 약화되고 열량 소모가 낮아 비만을 일으키는 이유 중 하나가 될 수 있습니다.
There is a way to self-diagnose for abnormalities.
국민체조로 어디가 아픈지 진단하는 방법을 알려드리도록 하겠습니다.
If you can't do this simple shoulder roll, you might have a frozen shoulder. Shoulder bursitis is also a possibility if your shoulder sockets hurt when you move your arms. Next up is a neck stretching exercise.
숙이거나 뒤로 젖힐 때 아프시거나 어깨에 통증이 있거나 손가락에 저림 현상이 있으시면은 목에 디스크라든지 퇴행성 아니면 협착증이 있을 수가 있으니까 잘 생각해 보시고 하시기 바랍니다.
Cervical disc herniation may be the problem if you find it painful to bend forward, and lumbar spinal stenosis if the pain is greater when you straighten up. If your neck feels so stiff as to make a simple exercise difficult for you, try doing this stretching routine for 10 minutes every day. Place one leg in front of the other and use your hand to support one side of your waist and lean sideways.
골반 주변에 있는 근육들을 스트레칭 시켜줄 수가 있습니다. 그러면 이제 평소에 허리가 많이 아프신 분들은 허리 근육을 이완시켜줄 수 있는 스트레칭에 도움이 되실 겁니다.
Throw away the bad habits that could hurt you and try to maintain good posture for better health and a slimmer figure.
And now we'll take a look at the markets, followed by the world weather. And that's it for this edition of News Today. We'll see you again on Thursday, and until then, have a Merry Christmas.